What's going on, everyone? And thank you for tuning into Stateside Footy here on a, what is it, Friday today? Is today Friday, Dermot? Today is Friday, right? Yeah, today is Friday. That's exactly how it's gone, man. International Football Week is over. And I got to say this to you, Dermot. I'm actually kind of happy to get back to the club game because I got to be honest. I got to totally be honest with you. This international window was absolute dog shit, not just for England, but also for your Irish lads over there across the pond, and also for my beloved U.S. men's national team that absolutely got just whipped, bodied by Belgium, bodied by Portugal. And granted, don't get me wrong, this season has been absolutely just dog shit for Spurs, but I'd rather deal with that evil than the evil that was the March international window.
Yeah, look, let's all laugh at England losing to Japan first. Sorry, England fans, if you're out there. Yeah, it hasn't been a great international window. We've had us lose to Chechnya for 2-0 lead. We saw the USA got taught a bit of a football lesson, and Poch always flirting with Tottenham, but never going the extra mile. It's like we've taken him out for dinner, and he says, "Right, I'm sorry, it's me, it's not you." Left the restaurant, and we've got to pay the bill. I mean, that's how I feel this international break has ended up. And now we went out the restaurant and we bumped into De Zirbi and we're in a new relationship. So that's how.
No, you know what it is? Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it is, right? It is, you're thinking that this cute chick that's, cute chick that's going to go all the way with you. Tottenham's only giving out hand jobs, right? And that, Poch, that's the thing, is Poch is giving out hand jobs and Tottenham's looking for the nookie, right? And, and he's like, I'm not that type of gal. And Roberto De Zirbi is like a whore. De Zirbi's whoring around. And he was like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's just do it. You know what I mean? And Spurs are like, fuck yeah, let's just get dirty.
That's one way of putting it. I love that. That is so funny.
That's exactly what it is, man. That's
why Irish people drink.
Yeah, that's why Americans do the most blow consumed in the world.
Yeah.
So,
oh Lord, that was
all funny. Right. Well, that was funny, but I'll say this. So that's a solid segue into the fact that Spurs have hired their third new manager of the fiscal calendar year, and of course, it started with the dismissal of the guy that won our first European trophy in 4 years. Nah, that's not good enough. We're going to go with this guy over here because, he's safe. That lasted 8 months. And then, they hire the Italian, the Croatian that flirted with Italia for a while. That didn't work. And now we're going to Roberto De Zirbi. I got to be honest with you. Here's the thing. What I will say is it took me a few days to kind of get all the information in and kind of form an opinion. And I got to say that of the available coaches that were there, he is clearly the best.
Yeah.
What I don't like about it is the fact that we gave him 5 years and $60 million because, quite frankly, he never lasts more than, a year and a half at most before he finds a way to get out of the club. And so from that standpoint, we're giving a guy who doesn't play well with others. And we're giving him a lot of power. We're giving them a lot of money. And of course, there's a lot of fans who look at this and like, you're the guy that you're kind of the guy that doubled down on Mason Greenwood. So I'm out on you. And so from that standpoint, it wasn't the most popular hire that, like when you look at the fan base, there's some that like it. There's some that probably won't renew their season tickets over it. And so from that standpoint, the way that I look at this is like, I don't really give a shit who the coach is. Really, this comes down to the players. The players are going to be the one that are going to rescue this season, keep us up. And if Roberto De Zirbi can figure a way to plug in some confidence, we'll stay up. And at that stage, I think that's going to make everybody a little bit more happy. The first challenge here is staying up, and then we'll worry about Roberto De Zirbi and what that looks like next season. But for me right now, I think this is like the best hire that we possibly could make it at this stage right now.
I think it was the most sensible, if I'm being honest. I've got this sort of opinion that Tottenham were to continue the sort of metaphor you were calling De Zerbi earlier, that Tottenham were bent over, and you're taking what I've got, and Tottenham were in no room of saying, well, this is
Yeah,
what we. Nah, sorry. You want me to come in, you take my terms, you do what I want.
correct.
We've gone, okay, we're going to chuck money at this. And giving him the 5-year contract is I don't. If I didn't think Dumber and Dumber could get any dumber, then they've proved to me they can. I mean, they've got probably a brain cell between them. If that was you and me, Steve, we would have given him, or the people watching, we would have given him a 2-year contract plus with an option, with an option for a further year, and then take stock, or give him a year's contract or an 18 months contract. We've just.
I wouldn't have hired him. I wouldn't have hired him. He's not my style of coach. Me personally, because here's the thing. Number one, it's a move of desperation, and I don't want that out there. Even though that it really does feel like desperate times call for desperate measures, I don't want that out there because of exactly what you just said. Because now players can bend me over without any type of lube, without any type of lubrication. So if we're in the summertime, we're looking for players, and all of a sudden a $40 million player is asking for 65. Well, we're going to have to do it. Because if you're doing it for your coach, you're going to have to do it for your players. And I think that sets a shitty precedence, right? But that being said, it's like, but what else was available? You know, it's like Tim Sherwood, Harry Redknapp, Jermaine Defoe. It's like, dude, Robbie Keane's not coming through that door. So who, like, and that's the thing. It's like Mauricio Pochettino said, clearly stated that my priority right now is the World Cup, but check with me after we get eliminated in the summer, because I'll come then. But but as of right now, we're in a dogfight, so he's not coming. You know what I mean? So who was available? Who really was available that could get us out of this, but also wants to come? And Roberto De Zirbi made it very clear. It's like, dude, you're gonna have to pay, and we paid. That's it. We paid.
Yeah, I've seen arguments against, like, as Jamie O'Hara called them, the Avengers. Or I was on TalkSport there on Sunday. I rang in TalkSport, and they were talking about getting the Tottenham Avengers in: Harry Redknapp, Tim Sherwood, Glenn Hoddle, people like this. And I've seen arguments, people saying, "Oh, they haven't been in the game for 10 years, or they haven't managed." Well, I'm sorry, you could be a manager that hasn't managed for 10 years. Football is still a simple game. Football's still about putting a ball in the back of the net. You can go in there, you bring Harry Redknapp in there. Firstly, he's going to lift everyone in that dressing room. That's what he does. You bring in a Glenn Hoddle. Yeah, you hope. And I think he would have done. I thought you bring in Glenn Hoddle, Harry Redknapp, and you bring in Tim Sherwood, and you leave it to them. And then you wait to the summer to bring Pochettino back, which is going to be a total fan. It'll bring everyone together. It'll be a clean sheet of paper, and we move on. But that ain't going to happen, because as part of the board don't want Pochettino back, because they want that. Enoch want this leverage over this fan base. They want this bit of leverage where we don't want to give them a martyr to rally around.
Right.
And we don't want that. And we don't want the pressure of going out and spending loads of money. Well, you sort of effed yourself over in a way.
Right.
Because you're going to have to do that with De Zirbi anyway.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And this is why I was saying that Lang and Vinay and Lang have been not really smart by bending over and doing this. Because if they did go down the interim route of a Harry Redknapp, they should have done that first time round. Correct. They should have done that the day they sacked Thomas Frank, Harry Redknapp, Tim Sherwood, Glenn Hoddle, get them in.
Or you go get De Zirbi then, and you don't even bother with Igor Tudor.
Well, they tried, and they didn't want to know, because Tottenham were just offering nothing. And now, as I said, even Simon Jordan said in TalkSport, Tottenham were caught with the trousers down.
Yeah, 100%.
We've got to do something. And it's head scratching. It's head scratching, Steve. It drives you mental, because you and me could see what needed to be done. Why can't they?
I think, listen, when people have their backs against the wall and they know that the axe is coming down, they're going to do whatever they can to rectify the situation. And sometimes you act out of desperation. But that being said, it just goes to show you that how tone deaf and how much they can't read the room. And that's the funniest thing for me, is the fact that is exactly what it is. My biggest concern with this is the fact that he doesn't play well with others. And that includes players. That includes players, right? Like, there's some players that actually do like him because he challenges them, right? Like, he is cut from the Marcelo Bielsa school of, like, our players are going to be fit because, like, in order to play in my system, you have to run. So I guess from like an aesthetic purpose, I would like to think that this team is going to play better. And he's got a set of standards, which I like. Because like, one of the things that I didn't like about Thomas Frank was the fact that because he was such a conservative, defensive-minded team, it didn't require fitness in order to play that style of football. And that showed when Igor Tudor stepped through the door and he was trying to play a front-footed game and they couldn't do it. And he spent what, 5-6 weeks trying to get that team's fitness levels back up. Yeah. And it was all for naught, right? So from that standpoint, you would think that there's not going to be too much drop off. But that being said, he's also the type of manager that rubs players the wrong way.
Yeah. It does.
And again, that is not something that I want to, I don't, it's not about having like a kumbaya type of thing. But that being said, it's like, you want as much harmony in that changing room as you possibly can. And you want your players to run through a wall for a coach. But that being said, on the flip side, if Johan Lange doesn't get the type of caliber player that he wants, he's going to throw a pissy fit. And it's only going to be a matter of time until Spurs are looking for their next head coach. Because Roberto De Zirbi is not going to hang around for that long just to be handed the equivalent of Dominic Solanke and 3 teenagers.
I've already seen that there is clips of him on X. There is a 22-second clip of him taking his first training session today. I've seen more in that 22 seconds to convince me we're going to stay up comfortably than I did under Thomas Frank or I did under Tudor. What worries me is you look at some of the players' body language. It doesn't look like they don't want to know. I mean, you're looking at him trying to tell a player to back in them up. You're looking at Jed Spence. He's just waddling around like hasn't got a care in the world. And I said it yesterday in my own show. I said, now you're going to see who the players are, who's going to stand up, who wants to be counted. And I think you're going to see that very quickly. We need, be honest with you, Steve, he has no honeymoon period. I think it's possible to get 7 points out of our first 3 games. I think we can get a draw at Sunderland or win at Sunderland, 2 wins and a draw in our first 3 games.
You hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
I think we can. I think we can. I think he would. But the problem is, if we can't beat Sunderland, and then because West Ham play on a Friday, so we're going to be bottom 3. So if we lose to Sunderland, we're 2 points adrift. By the time we play Brighton, we and West Ham kick off at the same time. By the time we get to Wolves away, we could be 5 points. We could be 5 points adrift at the bottom of the league. And then you look and you need to go to Chelsea to get something.
Right.
You, me, both know there's not a hope in hell unless the team comes out of unless the team get points at Chelsea.
Unless the team comes together, right? We're gonna know right off the bat a week from today at Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. Whether or not these players have responded, because at that point you're going to have a week and a half worth of training. There's no other, there's no other competition worth focusing on, and so at that stage there's no excuses as far as I'm concerned, right? And here's what I will say though is that we kind of saw which players wanted to be accounting in the last couple weeks of Igor Tudor. And that was Richarlison, that was Matisse Tell, that was Archie Gray. There's some players that completely recognize the situation that we're in and that we're absolutely playing for the badge. And at that stage, that you can kind of see it manifest on the field. But then there's other players, that were not. You know what I mean? I will never, ever question a player's heart. But that being said, it almost feels like there's a certain group of players that understand that they're not going to be around in the summer. They don't care if we go up or down.
Yeah, you look at Romero. That's the bit, and I'll never forgive him for this. I can't forgive him for this. This, for me, was the red line with Romero for me. I got this love-hate relationship with Romero. Yes, you were following him into the trenches. Yes, you were following him into wars, that sort of character. But when he got dispossessed, when Forest scored that third goal, he didn't even make an effort to get back. Even if he couldn't get back, to start running back, that is something.
Right.
I'm sorry. I've talked to Philip Brady a lot about the 77 side that went down 49 years ago, 50 years next year. There was more fight in them than there was in some of this side we've seen. Some of these players don't care. Romero, no disrespect, all he cares about is the World Cup. He doesn't want to get injured and miss playing for Argentina in the World Cup.
Could be.
Some of these players think more about the World Cup coming up than they do about the Tottenham. And I think it's more the South Americans, which I don't mean to pick on the South Americans, so please, I do apologize.
No, you do. And you want to pick on the South Americans.
No,
you want to take the Brazilians, Colombians, and Argentinians to task, man. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Because they do play for themselves quite a bit. I will say that.
Apart from Richarlison doesn't actually. Richarlison's always playing for the badge. I have to give him that. He's not the greatest footballer in the world, but he does play for the badge. But a lot of these players, just all they care about is we've got a World Cup coming up. We're playing sort of in our home country. I want to be fit for that. And I just think, hang on a minute. This is a club that pays your wages. This is a club that puts you on the platform to go out and to show the people how you play, develop your skills, develop you as a player, and put you on the biggest stage of all, which is the Europa League win and Champions League football.
Right.
Your first priority is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And I hope De Zirbi gets in there and he absolutely tells them in no holds barred what is expected of them. Because you are right. We will know within the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of Sunderland game if this team, if this is going to be another manager, these players don't want to know. And if that's the case, then, Steve, we have the biggest summer in our history coming up in the window. Because then this squad then will have to be completely overhauled from top to bottom.
Well, it already needs to be overhauled top to bottom because it's just not good enough. But here's the thing, right? And I think this is something that, it's a hard lesson to learn, especially for old football fans. But we're playing in different generations now. Because the money is so great, they don't have to need the club. Whereas prior generations where they weren't making £200,000 a week, they were making £150 a week, £200 a week at max. Back in the 70s, back in the 80s. Some of these guys weren't really making big money unless they were a big name. And so from that standpoint, they absolutely needed the club. They needed the fan support and they needed the club in big ways, because if you got to an FA Cup final and you showcased yourself, it could mean potentially moving on to a different club, whatever the case may be. And then, when we hit the 2010s and contracts started exploding, you saw a shift away from that where the club wasn't as important as the contract. The contract is everything to the player. And while I do agree with you, we're the club that pays your wages. There should be some modicum of respect, not loyalty, just respect. You know what I mean? We're the ones that identified you. We're the ones that brought you to London. We're the ones that allowed you to live the lifestyle, show a little respect and show a little heart and show a little fight in the midst of a relegation battle. I don't think that's asking a lot from the players. But that being said, we operate now in a different generation.
We do. I mean, I come from a generation where, players cared about the football club. Fans and players were one. I mean, I keep going back to the 80s and 90s where I believe that the players showed more then. I mean, I can go back to the Aussie years when we nearly got relegated under Aussie in 93, 94. And we had to go to Oldham. Now, Oldham now are in the National League now, which shows how far they've fallen to stay in the Premier League. But the players cared. The players fought. If these players went down, they won't care. They just say, right, move me somewhere else. The likes of Mickey van der Ven will go, Romero will go, Xavi will go, Kudos will jump ship. James Maddison has already come out and said, whatever happens, I'm staying. I'm not moving. Which, for me, everyone slags him off, and I'm thinking, do you know what? Fair play to you. You realise that you Tottenham have stood by you through your injury, and you feel I have this responsibility that I have to now stand by Tottenham. And fair play to him. And I wish more players were like that, Steve. If a Mickey van der Ven came out and said, do you know what? Whatever happens, I'm going to be here next year. Or if a Romero come out and said, do you know what? It's our responsibility. I was the captain that took us down. It's my responsibility as Spurs captain to take us back up. Steve Perryman did that back in 77 when we went down. He was the captain to take us down, and he was the captain to take us up, and went on then to be the captain to win 2 FA Cups and the UEFA Cup. So there's a lot to say, and I know it's different generations. You're right on that. And I know that players now have different sort of thought processes when it comes to international football and club football. But somewhere down in the deep of your stomach, there has to be some sort of responsibility that you think, do you know what? I was responsible for this. I want to make this better. And there isn't. And some of these players don't have that. So if that's how they feel, the sooner they're out of our football club, I think the better. Because there's a rot inside that club from top to bottom of I don't care. And we need that needs to change. It really needs to change.
I'd rather start with the executive branch than the players, but that being said, it's easier to replace players than technical directors and things of that nature.
I agree with you. I think the executive branch does need change, and I totally agree with you. The other way that's going to move, if we stay in the Premier League and somebody comes in that offers them the money that they want to sell the football club. But do you know what I mean? And this is where I do agree with change for Tottenham, what they did before the Forest game, about getting behind the team, making it a ruckus atmosphere. But now I think we're going to have to. I mean, Billy's coming on tomorrow night, and one of the questions I'm going to ask him is, can we now marry the two? Can we support the team for 90 minutes, then after the game, do a sit-in or to keep this protesting going? Because this board has to be held to account. This is 25 years of failure of building squads, of failing managers, of not going on to the next level, especially after reaching the Champions League final or Europa League final. I mean, we're the only club that, okay, whatever you love or hate it, Ange, we're the only club to sack a manager that won us our first trophy since 2008, our first European trophy since 1984.
Yep.
And we're bringing a total idiot, and then to cover that off, we don't sack him after when he needs sacking.
Yeah.
But don't worry, guys. We've got everything under control. And on top of that, we're going to get rid of Daniel Levy. And there's a lot of fans, Steve, asking the question, if Levy was here, would we be in this trouble now?
Probably not.
I'm going to have to say, probably not.
Yeah, like one of the things that Levy it was good at was identifying when the ship was sinking, and he wasn't afraid to get rid of the manager, especially if it wasn't working. So I would probably assume that that would have happened in January instead of February. But who knows? Carl Slim Blue, aka Audio Artisan, who I happen to like quite a bit, said these players are about to play in the biggest shop window. They won't declare loyalty before the World Cup. 100%. They're not going to come out and say anything. They're going to go to the World Cup. They're going to have a good tournament, and they're going to potentially be bought by some of the biggest clubs in the world. They're licking their lips to get out of Spurs, and it is like I said, this is a different generation. There is no club loyalty, and it's just the way it is, man. The loyalty is to make as much money as you can while you're in the game. I do want to talk about this because I feel like it's the elephant in the room surrounding Roberto De Zirbi, and it was the I guess you can say the backing of Mason Greenwood when he came to Olympic Marseille.
Yeah.
The thing about it is I remember that vividly, and he did what every good coach does with a player, and that is take pressure off the player. Never once did I think that Roberto De Zirbi was co-signing sexual assault. I don't think that was it. I don't think that was it at all. Say what you will about Roberto De Zirbi, but that being said, I can't in the wildest stretch of the imagination imagine that a coach would be okay with it. But I will say that because when he came to Olympic Marseille, there was a lot of negative press about him for some of the things that he did. We're not going to get into the things that he did, but that being said, when you're a player coming into a new team, your coach is there to take that pressure off the player so that player can be somewhat comfortable. And that being said, he can go out there and play and do well. That's the entire thing. You're bringing in a player to score goals, right? And the last thing you want is for that coach to not be that shield between him and the press. And so from that standpoint, that was my read on it. But that being said, some Spurs fans are literally saying, I won't come to the stadium. I won't buy tickets. I won't support this club while he's the coach. I find it, by the way, number one, I find it highly, highly hypocritical. I also find it completely virtue signaling for certain progressive fans that are just looking for something to be mad at. But that being said, it's like, listen, also let's not forget that our CEO, who was once a CEO at Arsenal and also literally rewarded an active sexual assaulter in Thomas Partey the entire time he was there and was giving him contract extensions, right? So here's the thing. If you're going to call it on one, you call it on the other. But that being said, nobody was protesting in the streets when he was hired. Nobody was protesting in the streets when Vinny Venkatesham was hired. Understanding that he was the guy that was actively rewarding a dude that committed sexual assault. Instead of banning him from the club, they extended him, I think, multiple times. And so from that standpoint, it's like, listen, if you want to be mad at one, you got to be mad at the other. We got to call it 100% of the way, or we don't have to call it at all. So which way is it going to be? Which way is it going to be?
Yeah, I had me on saying this the other night. Look, with the Mason Greenwood, right? Whatever you think of him, he was never found guilty of anything. So I think that has to be firstly put out there. But there's enough evidence to show that there was something going on.
He did what he did.
And also, I condone, and I know you as well, Steve, we condone any violence against women or anything like that. It's not right, shouldn't happen, and we condone it to the highest level. I think De Zirbi, when he was first announced, I did have that first thought go through my head. How are Tottenham going to deal with this? Because there was going to be a lot of backlash to it. And rightly so. I think it's rightly so as well. For him to come out and apologise, either if it's heartfelt or it was club managed or whatever, I think it's a stepping stone to drawing the line under it. I feel also that the fans that are complaining and the fans that are criticising this appointment have a right to their opinion, have a right to voice their frustrations and voice how they feel. and if they feel that strongly that they cannot come to the stadium, then that's their right to protest. That's their right to go down that road. I think it's a very sensitive subject, and I think the way the club have handled it, the way that he handled it, come out and he apologized, and he spoke in Italian as well, so he couldn't be misquoted, which I thought was a smart move by him. By the way, I thought that was a very clever, smart move, so he could say exactly what he wanted to say. Yes, managers will come out and defend players. You look at the Ryan Giggs scenario. You look at the Wayne Rooney scenarios. You look at players up and down the years past and present that have had drink problems, Paul Merson, drug problems. And managers will back their players. Managers will look after, even if it makes that manager look like a wally or bad, and paints him in a bad light. He's going to do that because he probably needs that player to perform with him. Now, on the Greenwood side of it, I think football authorities should have come out and banned them, like they should have done with Partey. It shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be down to the club. If the club cannot do a situation, then the football authorities of that league or of that nation should come out and said, okay, we're going to ban you for so many months until this situation has been totally cleared up. Because A, you're damaging the reputation of your football club. B, you're damaging the reputation of the league. And C, it is the right thing to do. But money talks. So clubs and football leagues aren't going to take the right route because money talks. So I think, especially with the Tottenham Hotspur Sports Trust, who I have great misgivings about, by the way. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. I know, and it's just for the way they've handled stuff in the past that I've lost my faith in them as a supporters trust. I just feel that they're jumping on every bandwagon going, oh, look, we're on this bandwagon now. Oh, we're behind this because this is the latest thing to make us look good. No, I'm sorry. If you feel that strongly, then don't come. And that's you have your right to do that. And I applaud somebody doing that.
Sure.
But I think he's apologized. I think we need to draw a line under it somewhere along the line and move on. And I agree
with
think
you,
we've got to move on. Sorry.
Where I do agree with you, Derma. No. You weren't rambling at all. What I was going to say is I do agree with you that the governing bodies should be the ones that ultimately determine it. And here's what I will say, that it is a slippery slope because he was found not guilty. And at that stage, you can't punish somebody if they were found not guilty in a court of law. But here's what I will say, because in the United States, how it works is quite simple, where if you are indicted for any crime, the league in which you play in automatically just suspends you indefinitely, pending the outcome of however it's going to play out. And if you are found not guilty, then you can be reinstated and then you can resume your career. Obviously, if you are found guilty and there is a punishment, you're going to continue to stay suspended until whatever happens, right? So from that standpoint, I like it because the leagues get out in front of it, right? I can't remember the name. There was a footballer from England that had a drinking problem, got behind the wheel. I forget his name right now, but he got behind the wheel and he killed somebody drinking and driving. And I think what ended up happening was that he was suspended for quite a long time because he was found guilty and he had to go to jail for a while. And then when he got out, he tried to reinstate, and I don't think the FA reinstated him. And I can't remember his name. But that being said, you're absolutely right, where it's like, Mason Greenwood should have served a suspension for an indefinite period of time, at the very least, until something gets adjudicated. And once it is very clear that he was found not guilty, okay, great, you can resume your career if there's a team that's willing to take you. Fair enough. But that being said, it's like in the case of Thomas Partey, he was allowed to play amid allegations
Yeah.
and charges, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Which is
Well,
absolutely ridiculous.
It also shows how Arsenal had no backbone into dealing with the
Correct.
situation themselves.
Correct.
And look, you're right about Vinay, but don't think there was other people probably above them that could have taken that decision as well. So I think there's a lot of people to blame. And I think Vinay's been a disaster at Tottenham anyway. And the sooner that man goes, the better. And I think the Lewis family will get rid of him in the summer, because I do feel
when it comes to these clubs, when it comes to these clubs, though, Derma, these clubs that have billion-dollar valuations, they have security personnel that work for that team that monitor player activity, and especially when it comes to players that are doing things that they're not. They have those full reports, and they have all the information in front of them, so they can make a decision. Arsenal, I refuse to believe that Arsenal didn't know what was going on, and they knew, and they still continue to do it. And that's, that is the reason why I absolutely have no respect for Arsenal, because they allowed somebody like that to continue to earn a living on the back of victims that, it sucked, man. And that's the thing. It's like, what I will say about Roberto De Zirbi is you're right. I'm glad that he came out and said something, but the reality is there's still going to be people that are going to be upset. And you're right. You're able to have an opinion. You're able to do whatever you're able to spend your money whichever way you want. I'm not going to argue with it. But at the end of the day, man, it's like you cannot like, I'll just say this, you cannot like our coach, and you cannot like that situation, but you can still support your club that you've been supporting for 25 years.
Yeah.
You can still do that. You can still do that in a time where the club absolutely needs its support. Considering everything that's going on this season, I don't know, man. I just think that maybe this is just me, and again, I'm not apologizing anything. But that being said, let's do ourselves a favor and just kind of put our swords down and put our political beliefs to the side and make sure this club stays up.
Yeah, I agree. But you know as well as I do that everyone will have an opinion. Everyone will say my opinion counts. My opinion is the number one opinion. Your opinion doesn't count because I've got the bigger yardstick. Well,
right.
I think, look, he's come out, he's apologized, draw a line under it, and we move on. Yes, there has to be education, and maybe Tottenham can come out and do education and maybe do something about this. But I think between now and the end of the season, I think we've got to get behind the team. But look,
I agree.
But just on the flip side of that, I think Tottenham do have to come out themselves as a club and say something as well. So, right, the manager saying something. I think the club have to come out and say we can.
They're not doing
whatever
shit.
It is.
They're not doing shit.
No, and that's the thing. I think if the club come out and did that and said, "Look, we know, we see the problems, we understand why you're upset, we condone whatever X, Y, and Z," the managers then come out and apologized, because this will. I will tell you this now. This is going to be a yardstick. They're going to beat De Zirbi over the head. Some of the fan base are going to use this situation as a yardstick to beat them over the head if Tottenham don't get off to a good start. But I just feel that he was a manager protecting a young player. It was the player that caused the problems. It was the player that had the issues. It was the player that got himself into trouble, not the manager. And the De Zirbi at the time, rightly or wrongly, took an action where I think he looks back now and regrets saying what he said. So I think that was the other reason why he came out and apologized. But people do have the right. These groups that are coming out, I understand their frustrations. I understand where they're coming from. I think they're right to voice their opinion. But Tottenham Hotspur Football Club should come out with some sort of a statement or some sort of action to say, look, do something, donate money to a charity or a group that protects women. Do something.
Right. Yeah.
Just to sit and do nothing. and just
they're
think
not
all the
going to do that.
managers apologize. That's enough. That's not good enough.
They'll probably get him to sit down with the women's team and do a talk about how society needs to change. Yeah, that sounds about right, Carl. That actually does sound about right. But what I will say is you're absolutely right. You brought up something interesting there, though, Derma, is the fact that you're absolutely right. There's going to be a subsection of fans that just will never buy into this, and they will use this to beat him over the head as much as they possibly can. And that's my biggest fear, because he's going to look at this and say, you know what, the fan base never accepted me. The board never gave me X, Y, and Z in order to build a team. And I just look at this as like an untenable situation. I really do. And it's like, if he, if we manage to stay up, I look at like, this is the problem with this, is because modern football is a what have you done for me lately type of business now, that my biggest concern is like come January 2026, 2027, and Spurs are in 15th place because they never really got off the ground. Because of course, we didn't necessarily have to do the summer business that, we should have done. And Johan Lange has the exact same type of January. We're going to be right back in the exact same position that we are this year. That's my biggest fear.
It's a marriage made in heaven. It will end up being a marriage made in hell.
Yeah.
That's what
they're going to
be at the moment.
And they're going to be and they're going to be kicking themselves that they didn't wait to the summer to hire Poch. And mind you, there's a good chance that, Poch ends up at Manchester United.
I think that will happen. Though am I too, I'll be honest now. Am I too sad Poch is not coming back? Not really.
It would have been cool.
It would have been cool. Hot water. Yeah, it would be cool, but I get into a lot of hot water, Steve, because I call Poch a loser because he didn't win anything. And I say a loser from a sporting point of view, not from a manager's point of view, but from a sporting point of view. Pochettino didn't win anything at Tottenham. He finished second. So if you finish first, you're a winner. If you finish second, you're a loser. But on the flip side of that, he did give us the best football that I've seen since the 80s, since the Keith Burkenshaw years, which I remember, and the David Pleat years and the Venable years. So I think he was the only man to unite the fan base. I think he was the only man to bring this club back together. I just think in 18 months' time, we'll be here again, and the fans will be saying, bring Pochettino home, bring Pochettino home. And Pochettino's going to say, Pochettino will only come back if there's new owners in the club. As long as Enoch are there.
Pochettino's going to say, you should have waited. I would have came. You should have, if you would have waited to the summer, I would have come.
Yeah,
but you acted out of desperation. Yeah. 100%. I agree with you, right?
Don't want Poch there because they don't want the fans to have a martyr. They don't want the fans to have somebody that would be Pochettino and the fans together. Him leading the fan base against the Enoch. They don't want him there. All this bullshit.
I don't think. By the way, you can swear you want. I don't think that Pochettino would actively lead the fans against the ownership. What I don't think is they don't want Pochettino to have that popularity. You know what I mean? Yeah. Exactly. But what I will say, I got to ask you this question real quick. Let me ask you this question, and I'm curious to see your answer. Who was the last guy that we signed in a summer transfer window that was an actual legit star? Gaza?
Gaza, when we signed Gaza in 88 or 89.
Yeah.
88,
that was a huge signing.
No, he was the next best thing coming. He wasn't the Gaza we saw of Italian 90. We knew he had talent, but he was the next best thing to coming up. I think the huge star that we saw was Jurgen Klinsmann, an established World Cup winner. I think you would have to go to him. I think you would have to probably go back to Ozzy and Ricky in the 70s.
So my point is, it's been a while. It's been a while.
For me, for me, it'd be Jurgen Klinsmann 94. I can't think of anyone else coming in, being like, you picked up the paper, you looked at your phone, you went, "Oh my God, look who we've just signed."
Right.
There's
That has to be, that really kind of has to be you would think that has to be the priority in the summer, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, Steve, me have picked up our phone and went, "Oh, we've just signed him." Yeah, okay, what's going on next? There's nothing there to stop you in your tracks. And Tottenham have to do that. Yep. Tottenham have to do that. They have to sign somebody. Yeah, Evan, like Agda Davids. Yeah, Agda Davids. I prefer. I agree with Carl. Rafa van der Vaart. He was up there when we signed him on deadline day. Egder Davids, not really, because I thought he was a bit of a prima donna idiot. That Robbie.
No, I'm talking like a legit star that is like in today's money would be like 100 million pounds, like in today's money. And I will say that like that would be beneficial for this club to actually have those positive headlines in the summer.
Yeah.
Right. Because here's the thing, when you're hiring a coach, when you just hired a coach that has split the fan base and you're coming off of 2 straight seasons where you're finishing in 17th place. This year was a relegation battle and you got rid of a coach that won you a trophy and you had this type of season. You're going to have to do something to win the headlines. You're going to have to give fans a reason to cheer. And that is having an unbelievable summer window where it's like, holy shit, we just signed Nico Williams and we just signed, like Scott McTominay or whatever the name is. You know what I mean? Like not like one really big one and like 2 really good players. You know what I mean? Something where it's like, holy shit, we just had the summer. We just had one of the greatest summers we've ever had. Like that changes the entire complexity. I think that changes the entire complexity, and it actually brings fans on board heading into next season. And all this nonsense that we just talked the last 15 minutes is not even there.
Yeah, exactly, and it gives everyone that feel good factor. It gives the fans something to get behind, thinking, "God, can't wait to see him in the Tottenham shirt." Tottenham are going to have to do that. I want to see Tottenham spend in the summer around 350, 400 million.
Yeah, I do too.
That is for me that is minimum for me. This Lewis family. Agree. I don't look Tequila on our channel. Tequila says, "Look, I will give them to the summer." Well, I give them to January, and they let me down in January. So for me now, I don't care what they do, but if they want me to get back on sort of back on to give you another chance, then you're going to have to drop 400 million in the market.
And it's not, see, that's the thing. It's like, once you got rid of Daniel Levy, they made the mistake by opening their mouths and talking about how we're going to change the wage structure. Yeah. And we have this war chest that we're going to be active. And they did absolutely nothing. And that's where you lost all credibility. And so from that standpoint, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Like the summer has to be the biggest summer in club history when it comes to incomings. And it's not just transfer wages, but it's also wage bills. But that being said, it's like, that is the best way. That is the best way and the only way that you bring the entire fan base on board for the start of next season.
Yeah. It is. It's the only way that we're going to. The board are going to get something back to the fans if they go out and say, "Right, here we go. We promised you this. This is what we're going to do." It's all right saying it, then proving it. We know this squad needs an overhaul. And what I like about this De Zirbi thing, they're given De Zirbi, he's picking the sport. He's picking the director of football. He's picking somebody that he's going to be able to work with. I think whoever said that to De Zirbi, I think was smart. because it gives somebody that he can work with, that they can work together. But the other thing, the flip side of that is they've given him the keys of the kingdom, but have they given him the dodgy keys? Will a leopard ever change its spot? And to be honest with you, I don't think so. I don't think
so
Enoch will
either.
ever change. As much as they say they have, Enoch will always going to be Enoch.
Well, they don't know football. That's the thing, is they don't know football, and they don't know what they're doing, and they entrust people. They entrust important positions to people that also don't know football. So Derma, we have, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more games left in the season. A week from Sunday, it is Sunderland at the Stadium of Light before we host Brighton. Then we have Wolves at Molineux. We have Villa at Villa Park. We come home to play Leeds. Then we go to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and then we come home to finish the season against Everton. And earlier in the show, you said that there are points there. And from the training video from the 22nd, you were inspired by that training video. So I guess we're going to finish this off by saying, game 1 against Sunderland, what are your expectations and how do you see this one playing out?
My expectation is 3 points. It's going to get in the win, which I think he can. I think we will be able to get a win against them. I think, look, it's shocking that we've had to wait to April to get our first win, but I get it now. I expect Tottenham to pick up I think Tottenham will pick up 8 points in the last 7 games. I think they won't beat Villa. We won't beat Chelsea. I think we'd be very lucky if we beat Everton. But it's the home games. It's the away games we're going to have to get maximum points at. So we're away to Sunderland. I think that should be 3 points. We're away to Wolves. That should be 3 points on paper. You look to Villa, get a point there. Now, are we going to get anything at Chelsea? Probably not. But Chelsea are in a bad situation as much as we are. So that game could go either way. But yeah, for me, Steve, we're going to stay up 7 points. That'd be enough to keep us up. We're going to finish in 16th place. I think either 16th or 17th, but it's going to be a point between us and West Ham. I think West Ham go down.
I think there are 6 points with Leeds and Everton. I really do. Yeah. But what I will say is that I don't care about anything else except for Sunderland away at the Stadium of Light. And the messaging is the most important thing. And the expectation has to be the mindset coming in and expecting to win. Yeah. And that expectation has to be relayed on the training ground in everything that they do. Mostly, what I really want to see is, listen, Roberto De Zirbi has his philosophy and his style of playing. But that being said, there's not enough matches left in the season for him to completely implement his style of play. That's going to take a summer. What I really want is Roberto De Zirbi to put his ego to the side, implement a set of tactics that are front-footed attacking football, and just let these players go have fun, let them enjoy the game, and with the attitude that, listen, man, you're going to run your nuts off, and we're going to get 3 points.
Yeah, I have said
to me, that has to be the expectation.
Yeah, I've been saying this now, but I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but I've been saying this for a long while. That 7 points for me is the optimistic side of me, the sensible side to me. I think it's Marsh and Joe puts it in there. I think it's going to the last game of the season. I think we're going to go to the last game of the season, and we're going to need something to stay up.
We'll know in Sunderland. We'll know at the Stadium of Light, within the first 20 minutes whether that's going to happen. But that being said, Machina Joe, Everton beat De Zirbi's 6th place Brighton 5-1 to survive relegation. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? Seriously, what does that have to do with anything? That was a Brighton team back in 2023.
mean,
it's going to be
Brighton beat us
interesting.
last year. Last game of the season.
Yeah, the only thing that matters is whether or not these players respond. And if they respond, if they're challenged, then you're going to get a response on the pitch, plain and simple. And they're going to play hard. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out. And I hope that's a positive response. I hope it's a positive response. This team actually has this team does have a track record of getting points on the road this season. That first half of the season, they were quite good on the road. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that being said, I will say that to me, it's all about the messaging and how De Zirbi relays that message on the training pitch.
Would you start Kingsley or Austin against Sunderland?
If Vicario's available, then it's Vicario.
But he's out.
If he's available. Is he out? Okay, so is it Kinski or is it Austin? I'm going to have to say Kinski, and I don't think that first leg against Atletico Madrid was the right spot to play him in. I think Tudor by and large got that wrong. At the end of the day, yes, the player is supposed to come up, is responsible. I get it, but that being said, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to put in a cold goalie who hasn't seen the first team in a year. Or hasn't seen a start in a year, and you don't do it on the road in the Champions League in a hostile environment. You do it at home in front of your fans against a Nottingham Forest. You don't do it on the road in the Champions League. And so from that standpoint, that's where I fault Igor Tudor for that. But that being said, at the Stadium of Light, you know what's interesting? I'll say this. Because 6 days later, we're home against Brighton. I would almost be willing to play Brandon Austin at Sunderland and then start Kinski against Brighton.
Yeah, that actually makes a bit of sense. That's not a bad
because
shout.
you're playing Kinski in front of your own fans.
Yeah. No, that
What about you?
Look,
let's start with, who do you like better? Do you like Austin or do you like Kinski?
I like Kinski. I think he was badly treated against it. I do agree with you about the Atletico Madrid, and I think the reason they did that was because we knew Vicario had this injury, and it was about managing that injury. And trying to get him to the international break. I understand probably the reasoning behind it, but I just think I just wonder how his mental state's going to be if he's going into another hostile environment. Sunderland is not an easy place to go. That place is going to be rocking. That place is going to be hostile. And will Austin be the one that can block that out? Will Kinski have sort of deja vu again? So this is why I agree with you. I think you play Kinski at home because then the support's going to be there for him. It's going to be in front of his own fans. He's not going to have that sort of deja vu of playing away to Atletico Madrid again.
Right. It's about building confidence. It's about building
confidence. We cannot lose that game. We're more than likely we're going to be in the bottom three before we play Sunderland, unless Wolves do us a favour. I do not want to lose that game and going into Brighton, and Brighton are playing well at the moment too, by the way. Knowing that the time we get to Wolves, we could be 5 points adrift. That's if West Ham and Forest pick up points and we don't.
And if we're 5 points adrift, it's over. We're not coming back from that.
If we get to Wolves and we're adrift at the bottom, then you can kiss goodbye to the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might as well start planning for next year in the Championship, which for you and me as content creators, that is going to be probably it's going to be different because we're gonna have 2 games a week. There's going to be a tougher league. It's going to be more exciting. Look, the Premier League is exciting. I think the Championship's a bit more exciting.
I like the Championship.
Yeah, and it goes down to 8th. Look, I don't want us to get relegated, but I think sometimes you've got to be a realist as well and say, what if it does happen?
Correct.
And I think if we're adrift at the bottom, I think then plans will start to go to next season. Right, we're going down.
Imagine if West Ham stays up, Coventry, Millwall, and Wrexham go up, and we go down. And we have to travel to Derby County and Preston and Stoke.
Oh, don't. I was doing the watch along the other night, Steve. I think who was I doing it to? I was doing a watch along to. I think it was Atletico Madrid or Liverpool. That was it, the Liverpool game. And we were getting bantered on a Plymouth Argyle watch along. Somebody come into my chat and went, "Looking forward to seeing you in the Championship." And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, if we go down, we're going to get a summer of this.
By the way, man, you know it's going bad when you're getting bodied by Plymouth Argyle fans.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus.
It's shocking.
All right.
It's shocking. It's a time you just want to, right, that's it. I'm going to throw my hands up in the air, walk away and get on with it.
I would like, listen, I would feel for content creators, Spurs content creators, with the realization that next year with championship football, you know, like across the board, man, it is going to be so depressing in the summer. It's going to be so highly depressing in the summer, understanding what's coming up. But that being said, man, positive vibes between now and the end of the season. Yeah. Okay, before we go, quick, do you have an early prediction for Sunderland, or is it too soon?
3-0 Tottenham.
Really?
Yeah, I look, people call me deluded, but I never back my team to lose. Never back my team to lose. Always back my team to win.
I think Roberto De Zirbi starts off his Tottenham career with a 1-1 draw at the Stadium Light. And I will say his first victory comes at home against Brighton.
Yeah, but you are right. We'll know within 15 minutes of that first half which way the game's going.
I agree. All right, Dermot. Any last words before we call this one a day?
No. Thanks for having me on again, Steve. We've got to do more of this because I enjoyed it tonight. It's been fun tonight. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it has been fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Absolutely. Before we go, just a quick programming note that tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern, the Major League Soccer live stream returns with the Chicago Fire versus Nashville SC. Two Eastern Conference powers will collide. Granted, it's only 5 matches into the season. This is match week 6, so maybe I'm a little high, acting in hyperbole by calling them Eastern Conference powers, but still, 1 versus 5 is a good matchup. That's going on tomorrow. Subscribe button because quite honestly, this is going to be kind of a banger of a Major League Soccer season, so it's going to be fun. On top of the fact that next week we are doing more Spurs coverage as we get set for Sunderland, and it should be fun as we prepare for that first trip to the Stadium Light in quite some time. So it should be fun. So that's going to do it. That's going to do it for us, Derma. I do want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you to all those that are in the chat as well, too. Machina Joe, Carl Slim Blue, AKA Audio Artisan, G Giant 68, and all those that are tuning in right now via X and also YouTube. It's been awesome. So I will see you tomorrow night. I hope you guys enjoy your Friday. Derma, again, thank you very much. And good evening to you guys across the pond as well, too. I hope you guys enjoy your Friday night. Take care, guys. Goodbye.